Welcome to Spoilers Only, hosted by me, Becca.
And me, Inea. And here on this brand new show we've got here, we will be discussing TV shows, movies, and most things in between in all of its glorious details.
So if details aren't your thing, that's too bad, because this is the Spoilers Only podcast. It's all we give. Enjoy the show. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of Spoilers Only. On today's episode, we will be discussing Marvel's Black Widow, which is now available to stream on Disney Plus with a subscription. It was previously available through the Premier Access program that Disney was offering, where you could stream movies that were currently playing in theaters from the comfort of your own home for an extra fee of $29.99. And it was $30, right? That's how much it was?
Yeah, $29.99. Wow. Which is why
it's nuts. That's nuts. That's enough movie tickets for like 4 or 5 people if you bought a group, or that's enough for like a ticket, a soda, a popcorn, and a bunch of candy. Like, why would anyone pay that? Okay, I don't want to get too upset about it. Now it is available to all subscribers. So Inea and I checked it out, and we have lots of thoughts and comments. And as of our filming, Black Widow currently has a 79% on Rotten Tomatoes, which means it is certified fresh. It stars Scarlett Johansson, Florence Pugh, David Harbour, and Rachel Weisz. All right, let's get started.
So, what were your thoughts on the movie?
Well, overall, I thought it was really good. I enjoyed it. I think that 2 hours is a good runtime for the movie because I feel like it packed a lot into that amount of time. And I know that some other Marvel movies, especially Infinity War and Endgame, definitely went over 3 hours because there was a lot of content in that.
I was going to say 2 hours is like average movie length, so that's pretty short in regards of like Marvel movies. Considering I think wasn't Endgame like bordering 4 hours?
Yeah.
Or am I making that up? No,
you're right. It was exceptionally long, but it was good.
I just Googled it. It said 3 hours and 2 minutes. So I'm gonna be real with you. I've not seen Endgame. I have not seen Endgame. I know what happens in it, but I have not seen Endgame. So when I heard people saying like, "Oh yeah, it's 4 hours long. It's the longest movie I've ever seen in my life," okay, cool. Don't know why I don't have the attention span to watch a 4-hour movie, let alone a 3-hour movie. It took me so long to watch Midsommar, which also stars Florence Pugh, but just because it was so long and I was just not focused at all. So
another movie that I thought of like discussing run times was The Irishman, which came out I think about 2 years ago on Netflix. And I think it was Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, and it was like a sort of mobster gangster crime film. And I'm pretty sure it bordered on 4 hours, or at least 3.5 hours, because that was like a really long movie.
I could not do that. Yeah, I couldn't do that.
No, it's there. Yeah, I think 2 hours is a good runtime. Definitely, like you said, a little surprising considering some Marvel movies have run over 3 hours. But I think for Black Widow, it was a good amount.
Just make a miniseries. Just make it a miniseries. Ooh, 3-parter. Yeah. I don't know. That's just my opinion. So I have a question about like something from that, like the opening scene. So I don't think that they ever like disclosed his name other than Red Guardian. So there's a scene where they're being shot at by S.H.I.E.L.D. and he's just riding on the wing of the plane, and then younger Natasha she takes off in the plane. So do you mean to tell me that they rode from like their little destination from where they were in Ohio to their destination, and this guy was just on the wing of the plane the entire time?
I feel like there wasn't a lot of continuity with that, because that was something that crossed my mind as well.
I'm gonna nitpick the littlest things in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, especially if, you're watching that and you expect a movie like this to just, I don't want to say be perfect, but you're expecting everything to sort of make sense. And with this movie, it was described as Black Widow's swan song, because it answers a lot of questions that we've had in previous movies about her backstory and her history.
Like what happened in Budapest.
Exactly. And I think that little things like that can sort of stick out to you, and you're like, wait a minute, how did they get there from there? And I know, like, on IMDb, there's a lot of times where they put in movie goofs of something that doesn't quite make sense, and it makes people think afterwards. So, yeah, I can understand why you would have a question about that, because it sort of crossed my mind, too.
I was going to say, it literally does not matter. But in that scene, all I could think about was, so you mean to tell me that this man just had his just poor little arms just clutched onto the wing of that plane the entire ride? But that scene as a whole, I think, it upset me, because throughout the other Avengers movies, we just barely hear about Black Widow and her backstory. She references like the Red Room and like briefly mentions what they did to her as far as sterilization, because I know she did that in Age of Ultron. She's talking to, I think, Bruce, and she's like, yeah, I can't have kids because the Red Room, they sterilize me to, like, whatever. And I think that's really all we get to hear about what happens in the Red Room. And I want to say it's also referenced in Infinity War. No, I think it was still Age of Ultron, because that's when they first introduced Scarlet Witch. And I do believe in that scene where she meets Natasha, she kind of does like a little mind trick where Natasha's like taken back to the Red Room and kind of relives those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the only bit that we got to hear about it. So it makes sense that we get to see the what happened, like her backstory. So I think the release of this movie kind of makes sense, at least as far as like when it's released.
Mm-hmm. I think, like you were saying, the opening sequence in Marvel movies can usually tell a lot about how the movie is going to be. I can't really think of one specifically right off the top of my head, but when it comes to Black Widow, I think the opening scene is a good, like, kickoff for what we're about to see, and it gives you a glimpse to the younger Natasha. It shows you her adoptive family, mid 1990s in Ohio. And it just kind of gives you sort of like, it sort of gives you like maybe cliff notes, or like a quick run through of, this is what happened and this is the story that we're going to tell you. But when it comes to like little moments that you saw in the film, like how you were discussing the airplane fiasco that you were just mentioning, one of the things a little later in the film that stuck out to me was how the vest that Natasha was wearing throughout Infinity War, we found out in this movie that it was actually a gift from Yelena, and it represents like freedom. And I thought that was a really neat symbol. And maybe it's not something that a lot of people will focus on, but for me, it was noteworthy. And I thought that that was really interesting. How we kind of got a little bit of the backstory of that, because I feel like watching Black Widow and then going back and maybe watching Infinity War again, you kind of could know a little more about Natasha, and especially in this movie, since you do learn more about her backstory, you could go back and rewatch some Marvel movies, since, this would be added chronologically between the events of Civil War and Infinity War. It probably gives you more of an insight, not just to her history as a spy and her, childhood, adolescence, and growing up, but also probably certain reasons why she might have made decisions that she did in those movies, or like certain memories that she had maybe when she was in Age of Ultron or Civil War. And it just could help set the tone for some of those movies a little bit better.
I think this movie will definitely put a different tone on her character. We're going back to rewatch those movies, mostly because up until now, we have not talked about Natasha and her family at all. Like, I get that that's not her real family, but like, we've not talked about her possibly having a sister. It was always just, Red Room bad. I don't want to talk about it. Also, we never talk about what happened in Budapest. But now in this movie, we not entirely, but they kind of reveal what happens there with her and Clint.
And I think it also sets up more of a Hawkeye story, because Disney Plus is coming out with the Hawkeye series.
Hate that guy. I don't. He's the.
Wait, are you talking about Hawkeye, or are you talking about Jeremy Renner? This is like off the record.
I mean, I guess both.
Yeah.
No, that's
the
on the
funniest
record.
video
On the record.
that I will send.
It's not that I hate Hawkeye. It's just that I think that he's the worst Avenger. He sucks. I'm sorry. I don't really care for the Avengers too much, just as people. They're just a group of guys just doing their thing, Ooh, destroy the city, save the people. Whatever. Yeah. At times like that, it would be a wonderful thing to have insurance for everything. But I mean, Tony Stark's a billionaire. He could like replace everything. Like, yeah, sure. Nearly nuke the entire city of New York. I got you covered. And that's also why they were on the run from the law in or after Civil War. So.
I think a big discussion that a lot of people have, even like Marvel fans and maybe not so big Marvel fans, is how nobody understands how the cities get repaired after what they do. I mean, you have the Hulk, a big green man, stomping away
the worst
on
superhero
roads
to have in New York City. Like, maybe if like the Hulk was in like Oklahoma or something, it would make more sense. Like, no, it's just in the fields somewhere. Like, sure, they have cities, but it's just like on the outskirts, just like in the rural parts of the area, so you're not like destroying like city and apartment buildings and actual residential structures. Yeah, I would hate the Avengers too if like I'm at work one day and then I just see on the news like, oh yeah, the Avengers are at it. They're like fighting some guy. Oh, would you look at that? Tony Stark and Hulk. Oh, excuse me. Iron Man and the Hulk collapse an entire building. Wait a minute, that building looks familiar. I live there. I would lose it. I'm sorry. I would be fighting them myself. Would I stand a chance? It's a possible chance. There's a possibility that they would definitely get knocked out a couple times. It's a tough call to make. I genuinely think I could take on the Hulk.
It's a reasonable thought too, because when you're watching those movies, and I guess that's why they call it movie magic, is you just have buildings everywhere and rubble everywhere, but you have the heroic music in the background saying they saved the day. But it should be like they saved the day, but they destroyed the city in the process.
Say the city is saved. We did it, and then like everything's on fire.
It's sort of like that meme where there's the dog sitting at the table, and it's on fire, and he's like, "Everything is fine." It's like that's an Avenger movie, without spoilers.
Yeah. So yeah, the Avengers, they irritate me. I'm more of an X-Men woman myself. I just have to pretend like I like those movies. They're not good. At least the first three aren't. And I kind of want them to like have a Hawkeye movie just to have Yelena as the villain in quotes. But she actually succeeds in killing Hawkeye. I'm sorry, Evan's he's a major weak point in the Avengers. Like, you've got Tony Stark, billionaire, in this like metal weird suit that can do a lot of things. And then you got, I almost said Tony Stark. It's the same person. Captain America, super strong guy, very agile, despite the immense muscle mass. We're not going to talk about actual physics. She's got the shield and stuff. He's got the muscles. Ooh. And then you got some other people. The Hulk. He's a big green monster. He likes to punch things, and he's also a scientist by day. So, very essential to the team. You got some other people. Pretty strong, pretty powerful. Don't really need to go into explanation. And then you swing it back around, and you got Hawkeye. The guy, he's got about approximately 12 arrows.
Yeah, he can't grow like the Hulk. He can't shrink like Ant-Man. He just stays, and he has a bow and arrow.
He just be running and shooting. Not even a gun. An arrow. Like, buddy, what would you do if I just snatched that thing off your back? I just snatched your little book bag of arrows off your back. You're helpless now. You are helpless. Kill him. I think he should die in his own movie. Oh, the end credits scene. I have to talk about the end credits scene really quick. So Yelena's at Natasha's grave, and she's for some reason talking to Elaine from Seinfeld because she's relevant in this world.
I'm sorry.
I've never seen this woman in these movies.
Well, I can explain.
So yeah, Yelena's talking to Elaine from Seinfeld for some reason, because she's relevant to the Marvel storyline. Yeah, and then she tells Yelena, who I guess did not give up the life of an assassin killer woman, and she's like, "Oh, you want to avenge your sister's death? Here's the guy who killed her," and then shows a picture of Hawkeye. So Elaine from Seinfeld tells us that she tells us that Clint killed Natasha. As someone who has not seen Endgame but knows things about it, I don't know that part. Is that true?
Well, I am very happy to explain this because we can segue into one of my favorite Marvel projects that they have most recently come out with. So, Elaine from Seinfeld, which I just have to say, first of all, Seinfeld has always holds a special place in my heart because my mom always gets mistaken for Julia Louis-Dreyfus. So I just have to put that out there. Like, I will always love the Elaine character. But so Julia Louis-Dreyfus in the Avengers Marvel universe plays a character named Contessa Valentina Allegra de la Fontaine. Her character first appeared in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which was a miniseries.
That's why.
That Disney Plus did back in March or April. And
I remember it was after WandaVision.
Yes, I loved it. I waited every week for an episode. I was very excited to see the characters of Falcon and the Winter Soldier just more explained. Not really an origin story, but you do learn more about their characters through this. And spoiler, at the end of the series, the Falcon takes over the reins as the new Captain America. Because of the events of Endgame, Steve Rogers goes back in time to spend time with his love. And Sam, the Falcon, takes over the reins as the new Captain America at the end of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier miniseries. So about maybe 3 or 4 episodes in, her character comes up because the government picked a different person to be Captain America. And he, I remember there was a big fight about super serum, and there was, it was a really well crafted show. It was really good. But her character comes in to help the old Captain America, who was blanking on his name. I want to say John Walker, who is the government chosen Captain America before Sam takes over. And when he abuses his power and gets stripped of the title, she kind of recruits him to be in her inner circle. So that is where her character first shows up in the film, in the acted out franchise, because in the comic books she's in it, but that's where her character first appeared. So it wasn't in Endgame or Infinity War, it was in Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
I was gonna say, because I have not seen Endgame or Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. I think I was kind of turned off of watching Endgame just because it was incredibly long.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think her showing up in the end credits scene, and I was really excited that we got an end credits scene in Marvel movies, because those are always so exciting to me.
I was gonna say, of course, it's like the one thing you look forward to. You're at the theater and then there are people who just get up as soon as the credits start rolling and they leave, and it's just like, you fool, do you even know?
But yeah, I think that's going to be a tease for the new Disney Plus series that's coming out with Hawkeye. I will be watching. I will be watching because I think that, you're going to see more of Elaine from Seinfeld.
I hope Hawkeye gets shot. You're laughing, but I'm so serious right now. He's irritating. Anyway, that's enough about that guy. One thing that I have to also comment on is the very dramatic Nirvana cover that opens this movie up. Thank you, Black Widow, for the lovely rendition of Smells Like Teen Spirit that I feel like definitely captures the tone of the movie.
It was rad. I will say that. It was rad.
Of sorts, I guess.
It wasn't expected either. It was an unexpected moment.
It kind of threw me off because I was just in my room sitting there thinking like, this song sounds familiar. I know this song. What is it? What is this song? And then I realized it's Nirvana. Smells Like Teen Spirit. And then you just really think about what how it sounds and the sequences that are playing as the song's playing.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely nailed the devastation of
Yes.
the idea of them raising and manipulating a generation of teen girls, or even like young girls, into being super soldiers essentially. That's ridiculous. Imagine being a child, because Yelena was like 6 years old when this had happened to her. Their training already started when they were younger than that, but it was more loose. And when they got older, they went to the Red Room. But imagine being a child and it turns out, oh, your childhood, it was a lie. That wasn't your real family, and nothing that you experienced was genuine. It wasn't real. It was all a part of some sort of training sequence. And also, you're gonna spend the rest of your life, or the rest of your youth, in this room, in this facility, training to be the most vigilant and I don't know what word I'm trying to use there, but tactical being, and you're gonna be a skill killer. You're gonna be a killer or a spy, whatever we wish to craft you into.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think her Natasha and her thoughts are pretty valid on. Oh yeah, I don't have a family. Like, you guys are my family. But I think it's really cute that her and Yelena were still very close. Like, although they weren't sisters, they still recognized each other as sisters.
Mm-hmm. And I think something that also stuck out to me in the film, that I had read online that was also considered like a spoiler, is that Natasha never learns the identity of her parents. And that was something that, because of what happened in Endgame, because of her demise in Endgame, this might very well be one of the last times we see the Black Widow character in a Marvel film, at least in a present day or future one. Maybe if they do if they do a movie that goes into the past, and maybe we learn a little bit more about her. But like I said, this is sort of her origin story, and this is her moment because her character, dies in Endgame. And I feel like that was something that I think for maybe some diehard Natasha fans, you don't get closure on that. You don't really get to know who her parents are.
How does she die in Endgame again?
Oh, sure.
Like, you started to tell me, and then we went off talking about Elaine from Seinfeld.
Yeah. So in Endgame, Natasha meets her fate. Okay, yeah. So Natasha and Clint, Black Widow and Hawkeye, traveled to the planet Vormir to get the Soul Stone. And in Infinity War, Thanos retrieved the Soul Stone by sacrificing his daughter, Gamora. Mm-hmm. And that's how he got the Soul Stone in Infinity War. So they realized that it was basically a soul for a soul, and someone had to sacrifice themselves for to bring back the half of humanity that was erased when Thanos did the big snap in Infinity War, which emotionally devastated me for a good month. I was not okay after that. But
should have sacrificed.
Yeah, Natasha, she sacrificed herself to get the stone, and
they should have sacrificed.
Hawkeye?
This is a
I had a feeling you were going to say
Hawkeye.
that.
This is a Hawkeye hate zone.
Another big reveal that stuck out to me in the film, we find out that the Taskmaster is Dreykov's daughter, Antonia, which was a pretty interesting factoid.
Just goes to show how truly heartless this guy is. To turn your own blood into a ruthless killing machine that obeys your every command just to get back at people. Who hurt you? Yeah. Sir, I just want to talk.
How did you feel when Yelena killed the general?
As she should. She should. That man was absolutely bananas. He was bonkers. He was off his rocker, some might even say. I couldn't keep a straight face. Yeah, that he was definitely on one, because I don't know who wakes up and thinks, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm going to raise a generation of females and turn them into ruthless assassins. But we're gonna do this from their childhood, so they will know no real compassion. And also, it's not even that he like turned them into assassins, because he also was really heavy on the mind control. So that's just a twofer right there with him, just being messed up in two different ways. Because not only are you stripping a bunch of people away from their like identity and what their life could be, you're also taking away their free will. I don't think that anybody should have their mind controlled. It's crazy. That's so crazy. And the fact that he had his own daughter under the same hypnotic, trance, that just goes to show you that he really does not care. And even his daughter was like, is he gone? Is he gone? No one likes you, buddy. But I think the thing that upset me the most is the fact that Yelena was ready to sacrifice herself in order to kill him. Thank God she did not die. But what I think what really upset me is in the end how she goes to visit Nat's grave, and it's just after we got to see them bond and get all sisterly and close and stuff. And next thing you know, she's visiting her grave. It's like now that they have they can have full control over themselves, and they have this life ahead of them that they can actually live and pursue. They can't see each other anymore, and that upset me. That genuinely upset me. Before I was like, oh yeah, Black Widow, she died. It's whatever. Sorry, but it's whatever. But now it's just like, oh, her sister though. That's so sad. That's so sad. I'm upsetting.
No, that is upsetting, and it did upset me as well. And I think, going into this movie knowing that Black Widow was dead, you understand that since this was her origin story of sorts, that I think was very much deserved. I think she was a very mysterious character. She was one of my favorite Avengers, and I really enjoyed getting to learn more about her and the people that she called family. But when it comes to her and Yelena's relationship, I think that we could have seen a few more movies or even a miniseries of their own, because they
Adventures of Natasha Romanoff and Yelena Belova.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely upsetting, like you said, and I just think that this is going to be a chance now for Yelena to become a major character in the universe right now, and gives her a chance to possibly avenge her sister's death. You see what I did there?
Avenge? I think she will. I think she will, because they even talk about that earlier in the movie, how they're like, oh yeah, it was a scene where they're talking about killing Dreykov, and she's like, oh yeah, but like, the Avengers would like easily avenge you. It's literally their name.
Mm-hmm.
So her talking about that, I think that kind of alludes to the fact that she's going to avenge her sister's death. And I hope she does. So in this movie, like I said, we finally get to learn what happens in Budapest.
Yes.
Because in the very first Avengers movie, way back in 2012, which is almost 10 years ago, can you believe it?
Crazy.
Yeah, I remember that movie came out. Oh, that's insane. I said that like it's like 60 years old. Yeah. So in the very first Avengers movie, they're shooting at some stuff, and then Clint goes, no, Natasha goes, ha, it's like Budapest all over again. And he's like, huh, you know what? We kind of remember Budapest a little differently from each other. And I remember that it was like a whole thing throughout the entire franchise, like, well, what happened in Budapest? What happened in Budapest? And here they kind of revealed that that's when she at least thought that she killed Dreykov.
I think that for almost 10 years of Marvel fans debating the question, what is Budapest? Like, I can remember seeing some memes about it and people thinking that it was possibly a code word for something else. Maybe it
I remember that.
meant something about Natasha and Clint's relationship.
I remember that. All the shippers.
Yeah, and I mean, those are completely valid points because they left us with absolutely no information. I mean, take what you want from it. You could make your own story with that. But yeah, I think I have seen that a few people said that it was kind of a letdown. I was just reading some critic reviews and some fan reviews where they said that they had wished that the Budapest story was maybe a bit more intricate or a bit more filled with detail or something more exciting. But yeah. I think for making this movie, and since it is probably the last time you will see a movie focused on Black Widow or heavily focused on Black Widow, I think that they just had to put in a lot of answers for us, and then we can just decode them from there.
But I just feel like since y'all have been riding us along with this whole Budapest 10 years later, and it just turns out it was for them to eventually bring up a Black Widow movie, which it was expected because they planned that stuff out very, very meticulously over the years. These movies are calculated. Because I remember talking about Infinity War in the 7th, 8th grade. That was a minute ago. That was back when after the first Avengers movie came out, and I think all we had at the time was the first Avengers movie, as well as the other. So yeah, sucks that we only got a Black Widow movie after her death, so we probably can't get anything else. Mm-hmm. Whereas Iron Man got 3 movies. Captain America got probably 3 movies as well. Thor got 3 movies. The Hulk has some movies, but those aren't really those aren't canon, I guess you can say. So yeah, I guess it's nice to finally round up her character and see, her past, rather than just being talked about in passing and then never referenced in detail.
Mm-hmm. So overall, with the movie, if you could rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give it? And did you have any parts or moments that stood out? And what would you say overall? What would be your review?
I'd probably say a 7 or 8. I think the 79% on Rotten Tomatoes is it makes sense. It didn't have like all the flair that, Marvel usually brings to the table. However, it was still a very good movie. We got to finally learn more about a character we didn't know too much about in the movies before. So we're very appreciative of that. One thing that I do have to nitpick about is, so in that scene where her and Melina are talking and she's like, oh, so, he has like a weird pheromone thing where you can't attack him because you perceive it or whatever. And then she bangs her head on the table. It's like, I'm severing the nerve. Your olfactory gland is not at the base of your forehead. Also, if it was, how hard do you have to slam your head on a desk to disrupt the signals to stop smelling things?
Yeah, that was a little awkward scene, I think, because
it makes sense, but like also like that's not
like you could tell that, obviously she was frustrated, and it's just her frustrations and just being upset like coming out, but it's the way that you describe it, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like it's sort of like a goof where you just think like,
that's just me nitpicking. It's what I do best. Yeah, the olfactory gland or olfactory nerves are not right here or
no.
here. This is all cartilage, buddy. But you said she was like frustrated in that scene. I think it was definitely like a mixture of frustration and also teasing, because she's focused and she has like this plan in her head, like, oh yeah, this is gonna go so well. Like, all I gotta do is ABC, and I can finally shoot you in the head. So she definitely was agitating him by not fighting back. And she looks truly insane when when someone's slapping you and beating on you and you just start laughing. Maniac. You're crazy.
I guess you could say that the plan was maybe Budapest all over again.
I mean, actually, yeah. Except this time, their mission will actually be completed and not completed. So I think Marvel has done some things over the years. It's always really fun following the story and the different, like, the branches, like how the first Avengers movie branched off into the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. series.
Mm-hmm.
I was really big on that when it came out. I have not seen every single thing that spawned from the Avengers series, just because it's a lot. It's a very intricate timeline to keep track of. But with the timeline, since like these movies take place like after the events in Civil War, so we've got this one and was it the Spider-Man? It was Spider-Man: Homecoming. It also takes place right after Civil War, so we kind of see what Tony Stark is up to, as well as get introduced into Spider-Man.
So between Civil War and Infinity War, you have 6 movies.
I guess they say that Captain America was kind of on the run, so he probably was just laying low, so that story probably was just not interesting at all.
Probably.
Staying various
He's probably hanging out with Hawkeye.
Plotting his murder. Yeah, so let's wrap up this episode.
Yeah. Well, overall, I would give it about a 7 as well. I think that, like I said before, it was time for Black Widow to have her origin story. I wish that it could have come out before her character died, but it, better late than never, as they say. So I enjoyed it. It did have the exciting Marvel feel, but it felt just a little more chill than some of the other movies. And also, I don't know if I'd say it was one of my favorite Marvel movies of all time, but like I said before, Black Widow was one of my favorite Avengers. So this will definitely be up on my list of Marvel movies that I enjoyed. And you did get answers to a lot of questions that have come up over the years about her history, her backstory, her family, childhood. So it did clear up a lot of stuff, but it also kind of leaves you wanting more because the Black Widow character is very mysterious, and I wish that there is more to come. But I'm glad that the character of Yelena is becoming more popular, and I'm looking forward to seeing whatever she does next as well.
Killing Hawkeye. All right, looks like that wraps up our discussion on Black Widow. Let us know your thoughts. Check it out if you haven't. Watch it again if you have. You can subscribe to us on YouTube if you are digging our stuff. You can also follow us on Spotify. If you also are digging our stuff, follow us on Twitter at SpoilersOnlyDuh. If you dig our stuff.